Cue Jeff's intro music. This is Jeff Talks RPGs, and today I'm with Chad Lynch and Steve Pankatai, and we are talking about our Kickstarters that successfully funded within the past 6 months. Mine was about 6 months ago. Chad's was a little bit after that, and then Steve's is the most recent, I believe. And with my Kickstarter, I had a lot of questions. A lot of things came up, and a lot of things that I thought I was doing, I was doing right, and things that I wasn't doing right. And so I just thought we'd just have a discussion with some other people who have done this and see what they have to say. So first, let's start with Chad. Chad, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about maybe your recent Kickstarter?
Sure. My name is Chad Lynch. I live in Iowa, central Iowa. I'm a dentist, been a dentist for 20 years. About 2 years ago, got into the DMs Guild, started making some content, and made an adventure. Was writing an adventure over COVID when we were in lockdown, and that's when it kind of. Then you convinced me to do a Kickstarter, Jeff. So
Well, you showed it
that's
to
what I
me,
did.
and it just looked so good. I'm like, man, you should try this on Kickstarter, and you did, and it was a success. So way to go.
Thanks.
And what was the name of that Kickstarter?
The name of the Kickstarter is Rescue at Griffin Crag Pass.
Yep. Very
Yep.
good.
So thank you.
And that's in print, or that's in test prints right now, correct?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
it'll be out on drive-through.
Yep.
Very cool.
Hopefully the goal is June, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how
I think
everything
you'll make
goes.
that. You should make that. And then Steve, tell us about yourself and about your Kickstarter.
Yes, I'm Steve Pankatai. I have done a pretty fair amount of Dungeon Masters Guild stuff. I've been doing it since late 2019. I have had a couple reasonable successes on there, and I decided to jump into the Kickstarter game, but I went full on and made a whole new RPG called Diesel. And I was very fortunate enough to get a real dream team together for it, and we just barely scraped by our funding, and we are actually, I believe, this week we should be getting our funding from Kickstarter, because we only funded about a week and a half ago.
Nice.
Yeah. Mine was, I didn't hit the funding goal I had hoped to. I mean, I hit my goal. I just didn't. I had hoped it would go higher, but I think I ended around 15,000, and it cost that much or not more to make the book. If you don't know what the book is, it's called Adventures from the Potbelly Kobold. It's available on Amazon and Drive-Thru RPG. Drive-Thru RPG has print, PDF, and the print and softcover, hardcover options if you want to go pick it up. But the funding basically covered the cost of the book. It cost about 15,000 to make. That's just because I commissioned a bunch of art. I commissioned writers. I had intended to do a lot more writing for the book, but when the funding hit where it did, I couldn't afford to spend more time on it and to put more art and cartography in the book and more editing. So I wrote the introduction. I wrote a bunch of the NPCs. I wrote how to tie the adventures together, and then I had my other 15 writers who I'd paid to submit adventures to the book. And so yeah, all that adds up, and it costs a lot to do a book like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, Steve, you've got the same issue. I mean, you talk about art, you've got a whole team who I'm sure aren't working for free.
No.
And so, of your budget, was that budget enough to cover the book, or are you still needing to make some more afterwards?
I made a rather complicated spreadsheet before I even recruited the team, and our goal was 6,000, and that just hitting that would mean we netted about $70 of profit. The rest of it all went to the costs.
Yeah, it is not cheap to do unless you're using stock art. I commissioned all my art. I commissioned all the maps and everything. Now Chad has a different story. His budget was, what was your budget, Chad? $600?
My funding goal was 600, but that was taking into account for the Kickstarter fees, and
Right.
But I had about 400 in on my editor, and I had $70 of art. So
Yep.
my actual budget was 470.
Okay.
And
That's
then
good.
when we, I mean, it funded quick. I was really just praying to get, just to pay for itself, but it funded pretty much in the first day. So after that, I was just taking some of that money as it went on, and I was just commissioning art. So I still came ahead pretty good, which was really surprising. I was pretty happy about it.
Yeah, because your final numbers were what out of that?
I think I funded it right around 5,800.
Yeah, which is great for a
So
single adventure. I mean, it's not a short adventure though either. It's like
it's
85
90 pages. Yeah,
90 pages. Yeah. So
that's going to be longer than my entire new tabletop game.
really, yeah, that's about Potbelly Cobalt came in at 176 pages. So you're about half of Potbelly Cobalt. So
right.
you did great. I mean, that's fantastic. Now, that's not to say that every adventure that's going to be Kickstarter is going to do that well. I think you had a great product and it just hit at the right time.
I honestly, I think the cover and the maps. I forgot to talk about Jean Laubert's maps. I did pay him too for the maps of a couple hundred. It ends up being right around 670. But I think the maps that he made were just so good, and then the artwork was pretty evocative. And I found that just on ArtStation. And I think just between those things, it just created, I think people could kind of imagine it. So I think that really helped me.
Jean's black and white maps were just amazing. I mean, they just went with that product so well. And then you brought in Matt Morrow to do more art for you.
Yeah, right. He's out of Omaha. He does he's great to work with.
Yeah, he did some stuff for Cobalt too, and that's really cool. Now, Steve, real quick, tell me about Diesel. What is Diesel about?
I describe it as Mad Max meets Firefly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Essentially, people have made themselves into semi-robotic people, and they live at the edge of reality itself, where you can literally walk outside of the universe. But most of the diesels are now like kind of aged and rusting and just trying to get that next part they need to get by. And then it's made to be a very narrative focused game. So it's designed for you to build the characters and their adventures simultaneously so that you can all, so the game you play is built for the characters that you make right there. And it's made for just short, punchy, like get in, tell one impactful story with really badass action, and then you get out and it's done. It's not made for, like a huge long D&D campaign. It's really a lot of fun.
Well, that's really cool. I had no idea. How did you market that your game?
Rather unsuccessfully.
Okay.
The marketing was a tremendous challenge, and this was something I hugely learned for this because it's not 5e. It's not anything like 5e. So like you had to educate people in advertising. Like how do you tell anyone any of that in an ad? I didn't really figure it out. So it's I leaned a lot on those sort of tropes, like Mad Max meets Firefly, because that's immediately evocative to people who understand the pop culture, and that's what all the art leans into, that kind of aesthetic where you can just grab onto those tropes and pull yourself into it. Is kind of what I had to do for marketing here.
Now, do you use the 5e rules at all, or is it just create a whole new rule set? That's cool.
I hired some mechanical designers who were really just fantastic, and I came in knowing the gist of what I wanted. We went with a D6 pool system, and it's designed. It's encouraged for you to just do cool stuff. It's not a game where you got to check the rules a bunch of times. Well, oh, you want to jump? Well, here's the jumping rules. Here's the stabbing rules. Here's the running rule. It's just, oh, you want to jump over this table and backflip and throw 2 knives, and they're rocket powered knives, and also everything's on fire. That sounds cool as hell. Let's do that. Like it's made for you to just do that.
Yeah, well, that's really cool.
Hey, Steven. Oh, excuse me, Jeff. Hey, Steven, you had I saw that you had a video that you had created. about that. Could you, I mean, because I have no experience with that, and it looked really good. I mean, like,
Thank
how did you do that, and what did that take to make that video, that promotional video?
That I did 2 videos. So I did the main campaign video, which I did just a 30-second like boom 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 buy Diesel.
Right.
And I also did a how to play Diesel video, which was on the page. And I work in video as my day job. So
Get out of here.
I know all the gear, all the stuff, all the friends, all the software. I have the stuff. So I went to one of my buddy's studios and I paid him for his time. So that did cost a couple $100, which luckily some of my other costs came in under, so I had a little bit of extra budget. But I went to his studio, he helped me shoot it. I edited it together and did sound effects and put graphics on it and just did all that myself.
That's
it
really
was
cool.
it was good. It was
Thank
really
you.
good.
That's really cool.
There's a link in chat to the website where you can watch it yourself.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have. Is it in the Twitch chat?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have that running because I don't want to see myself.
Runsondiesel.com. Tell your
Nice.
friends.
That's awesome. That's cool. That's cool. So I paid for a bunch of marketing. I paid podcasters, I paid YouTubers, I paid streamers, I paid, um, just some different people. And I'll tell you the best results that I had dealing with somebody as a marketer was Mr. Tarask. He does a lot of DMs Guild stuff, and he really worked to try and make my investment back in backers, because he would ask how many backers did my video get you. I said, well, we're at 5. He goes, well, I need 5 more to make budget or to cover my costs. He goes, I'll work on it. He really worked to make that money for me, whereas
That's
others
great.
I didn't. It is great. He's a great guy.
Mhm.
Others I didn't hear anything more of. They did the video, I got very few backers out of it, but then I had to ask myself, if I didn't do that advertising with those people to get maybe the 3 or 4 backers they brought me, would I have hit budget? You know, what was the residual impact of what they did? Did their friend tell somebody else, oh, go check this out? That's not, that I can't tell from that link that I gave them that shows you, where your funding came from. Because of those of you who haven't done Kickstarter yet, you can create links and give them to promoters and have them use those links in their promotions, and they'll click it, and Kickstarter will tell you this is where this backer came from. You can do that with your Twitter posts, Facebook posts, everything, and it'll show you where your backers are coming from. And so I was able to see that by paying this podcaster such and such, I gave them this link, and I maybe got 2 backers out of that $200 investment or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And so it really hurts to see that, but
Yeah.
lesson learned. The majority of my backers came from Twitter and from Kickstarter themselves, just organic Kickstarter backers. Maybe scrolling through, because I do this a lot. I'll be on Kickstarter and see something, then I'll scroll down and like, oh, that looks cool too. For instance, like there's a Sentinels of the Multiverse new version out right now. I don't know if you played that, Chad. Sentinels of the Multiverse. You play that one?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they got a new version of that out now. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then I scrolled down further, and there's another game that I was really interested in. So, that's how people kind of find these other games, or these found some of my stuff, I think.
Right.
But have you guys looked at your stats to see where most of your backers came from? Chad, no.
No, actually, I did. I think you, at least, mine all came from Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I had a couple from Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
a couple from Twitter, and the
Well,
rest was just
those
search from
stats
Kickstarter.
Those stats are a little bit misleading too. It is powerful. The Kickstarter algorithm is powerful, but a lot of my stuff is like, yeah, I tweet about it, then someone went to the page and they saved it. Then when it launched, they backed it, and Kickstarter's like, hey, that came from a saved thing. That came from us, but it came from
Right.
Twitter.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a little bit misleading.
yeah, but that's what it seemed like. You guys were talking about marketing. I did none. None. I didn't spend $1 on marketing.
Well,
And
I did. I put quite a bit into marketing. I'd say over $1,000 into it, if not more. But
Yeah.
did it pay off? I don't think so. In some cases it did, some cases it didn't. Um, I learned my lesson there, I think. But Steve, did you pay for any marketing at all?
I did, and I also learned quite a lot from it. I think because like I said, without being 5e, it is hard to convey what my product was and why you should care about it. And I also learned that the name Diesel is not great for search engine optimization, because I experimented with Google AdWords, and that tracks, like that'll tell you what someone searched to click on your thing, and I paid probably about $70 to people searching for car parts who clicked for some reason on my ad. And then you can refine it, like don't show it to people searching for Saturn Astras, but it takes a while to figure that out. So I paid for Google AdWords. I paid for a little bit of Facebook advertising. I paid for a sponsorship on Questing Beast's YouTube channel. And all of that did very little
Yeah.
for me.
Which, which don't get me wrong, I don't mind sponsoring shows, in order to get my name out, the product out, because that may hit later down the road when they see it at Amazon or something like that. But it's just that immediate backing on Kickstarter is what you're trying to get out of that, and I didn't see a lot of that with the money I paid. Something that would be a really good help, I think, would be if people knew how to set up ads in Facebook that would draw, like you said, people. You had auto parts people clicking your ad. If somebody had the finesse, the knowledge to create an ad for you that actually drove sales, that would be awesome. I mean, I'd work with somebody like that who would actually dig deep and
those people exist. They're just expensive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and one of the lessons I learned is that I didn't really have a marketing budget, so I took a very small share of this. Most of the Kickstarter is going to the team, and functionally my cut of it, I just paid on advertising. So I'm breaking even because, like that, I think that's an integral piece, but it's still a little bit of that crapshoot, because like I was on a Kickstarter that did not fund a few months ago. I was going to be a writer on it, and they had like a marketing team who specialized in Kickstarters and in gaming Kickstarters work, and it still didn't fund. They were going ambitiously, but it's still not a guarantee,
Right.
Jeff, I saw a big bump in my sales, to be honest, like after yours had funded and you said, hey, do you want me to like tell people about your Kickstarter, Chad? I can just put a little tag in there, and you did. And I, in the middle 2 weeks, you see that big, U shape where you kind of at the bottom of that U, and all of a sudden I saw this, this big hump right in the middle, and I was like, oh, that was Jeff.
Yeah, I had 600 backers on mine, so I think you might have gotten a couple off of me, but I know I didn't want to overdo that either, because my Kickstarter backers were following me. I didn't want to keep promoting other people's stuff, but I did it for a couple projects.
And that's right. When I was doing my research in my slump, desperate to get out of it, I found that heavily recommended to build that community and work off of it, and I saw some good results from it too. There's a creator named Ethan who did the Cyber Wilds Kickstarter that just finished, where he made cyberpunk D&D stuff. It's like fantasy cyberpunk, and there's obviously crossover there with Diesel, and I was like, hey, do you want to like promote each other? And we did, and I believe both of us saw a little bit of bump from that sort of shared community there.
Right.
Did you get many people asking you to cross promote their other products too?
Some. Not a ton, but a couple.
I had about 6 or 8 ask me to cross, jump in and say, hey, we see you're doing this. You want to do this with us? And, I didn't take advantage of that with some of those people, just because I didn't want to keep promoting other people's stuff when my Kickstarter was running. I didn't want to piss off my backers.
I always tried to work it into an update. Like exactly. I worked with Realm Warp Media, was a consultant for me, and they we're running several Kickstarters at the same time, and part of the idea was perhaps we can cross promote and share some of this stuff. So I would put out an update like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some cool stuff. Oh, and also while you're here, you might want to check out this other cool Kickstarter that's going on.
Right. Yep. No, that definitely helps. So if you've got people who are doing Kickstarters, work with them to build that community and say, hey, I know this person's work. You might want to check this out. Yeah, that's just one other way because Kickstarter feeds on itself. I think you've got a lot of people who just buy stuff off of Kickstarter all the time.
I had one backer that had successfully like he had backed like over 500 other Kickstarter projects. I was like, what the hell? I started doing the math. I was just like, if these are like $25 each, I'm doing the math. I'm like, God dang, this guy's spending his annual salary on Kickstarter.
Yep.
But you're right. There's a lot of people that just love Kickstarter projects.
I have to say, I spent about $500 on Kickstarter in about 4 months after I started looking through it, trying to find. I was going through Kickstarter trying to find setups that people had used for their own sites, their own Kickstarter stuff. And I'm just flipping through there, I'd see something. Oh, that looks really cool. Catapults and Kingdoms. I think I bought was this little block game with rubber bands and you shoot rocks, balls at each other, trying to knock down the castles. Yeah, I bought the $200 set of that. It just looks so fun.
Right.
And some other stuff. And then this stuff all starts showing up at the same time. Oh, there's the Deadlands role RPG, and that's cool. But yeah, Kickstarter is fun. And it was really fun to be able to say that, or to have my Kickstarter succeed. That was really cool. And when I wanted, of course, like anybody, I wanted to fund on day one. I wanted that huge day one sale, and then just see it hit 50,000 by the end of it. And of course, that didn't happen. And so, people are going, no, Jeff, you got a good start. You're like 3/4 of the way there, in 3 days. You're going to be all right. But then it just slow trickle. That big deep lull where you get a sale or two a day, and then it starts picking back up. And there's that Kick Tracks. I don't know if you check that out.
Yep.
That is so because it shows like you're going to hit $32,000, but then it doesn't take into effect, that's just on the daily average. So it's not looking at the future of saying, okay, well, you're just going to keep dipping down. So yeah, you don't make that Kick Tracks amounts that they show you, but it makes you feel good.
I had two negative days where I actually lost money, and those were the bad days.
Yeah, what's up with that? People taking their pledges back. What's up? It's like, what did I do? Did I do something bad?
That was when I got like really into the advertising, is like right in that middle slump where I was like, do something, throw money at the problem until it goes away.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I'm still doing that. Like I said, Potbelly Kobold is not selling after the Kickstarter. It's not selling much on Amazon. It hasn't sold any on Amazon. It's been up there for about a week. And then also on drive-through, it's not selling at all. And so you've got that difference in the sales of the DMs Guild versus the sales on drive-through RPG. Where a lot of consumers are going to the DMs Guild for 5e products. They're going to Kobold Press for 5e products. They're not going to drive-through RPG for 5e products. And then Amazon, I don't know how to break into that market. I'm doing ads on Amazon, trying to promote it or sponsor it so it shows up next to other D&D stuff like that. And I've had like 6 clicks, I think, on my ads so far. And it's just like, I don't know when it's going to take off. I think it's going to take off. One of these days it will. I just don't know when. Now, maybe if it wins at any, it'll take off. But who knows? I still have hope. But the thing that we got to think about here also, though, is if we do another Kickstarter, now we can add these as add-ons. So, we can offer this as an add-on sale at a reduced price. So people who don't have the Potbelly Kobold or Griffin Crag Pass or Diesel can buy the next product or back your next product, and you put that add-on, like half price or something, and then you're going to see more sales out of that. So it's just a different mindset of how you're going to make money off of this project. And I think you've got to just do more Kickstarters if you're going to monetize this, and until you build that brand. you know.
And I certainly have been thinking about that with Diesel, because it's new. You know, it's not 5e. I can't take it to my 5e group and talk about it. You know,
Right.
So if I want there to be a life of it, I have to will that into existence. You know, I have to make more books. I have to continue the brand. I have to maintain the website, put up a Discord server, engage with fans. Like, and over time, it could become a brand maybe that makes decent money.
Right. No,
But
I think it could with you know, you've got your own system there, and I think you could definitely do that. Something that I don't have is a Discord server, and I hear those do pretty well as far as, you know, creating fans or engaging with fans. Twitter is not the place to make money. Um, that is not an advertising space, I don't believe. You might get a few buys or backers from there, but I think a lot of those people who are following you are fellow creators, you know, and they don't have the money to invest in all the projects that everybody's doing, you know. So it's difficult to get backing off of Twitter. The Facebook 5e page, uh, sometimes you see some positives off of that. A lot of times you don't. What else am I trying? You guys have any thoughts on this? On where to get your social media interaction and with your products?
I feel like I had to scrape and claw for every back of Diesel is how it felt.
Yeah.
And I think much of my backers were those fellow creators, because you're right, most of my Twitter circle is other creators, and a fair amount of them backed and definitely helped spread the word, which was fantastic. It's the only reason it got anywhere, because that's all my Twitter circle is. But that's the only marketing that worked at all for me was Twitter. My other ads didn't go anywhere. They didn't do anything. So I was on Kickstarter and I was on Twitter are the only things that moved units for me.
Yeah, I noticed that too, like being on Twitter. You know, it's interesting because I don't know if you guys saw this too, but pretty much the same people are always retweeting your tweets about the product. It's the same people over and over and over. And every once in a while, you'll be pretty excited when somebody new is like, "Oh my God, you know, I reached them," you know. But I don't know if there was just enough looks that, you know, and who knows if they were clicking on that and taking a look at your product after that. But you know, I think having just a group of supporters, and I hate to call it a click, you know, but it's kind of a click that you kind of have to. You hope that you can just really get support from those people, and
yeah, but they can't
hopefully they just
support
retweets.
everything. Yeah.
No, just hey, just
Exactly.
retweet it. They're not your customers. You
No,
know,
retweets from fellow creators is the biggest thing, I think, because
It is.
they've got other followers and other followers within that groups. Yeah, the biggest thing is retweets from fellow creators. That's such a huge help.
Right.
So I'm gonna read through some of the comments here. So Christian, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. I don't know if anybody has seen the Venture Maidens recent Kickstarter. Just through the roof. So congratulations to Celeste Konowich. That is amazing. But she had a lot of high profile Twitter folks retweeting her stuff. And I think one of them was Satine Phoenix, and some other people. And, you know, she's got thousands upon thousands of backers, Twitter followers, you know, so that's always going to help. Let's see. Joe Rosso said he was on a February Zine Quest where it was a small Kickstarter, and a lot of those fellow Ziners helped promote the other products, which helped, you know, sell those products too. So yeah, what we're talking about here is really, you know, the same type of thing. Help each other out when you can, but don't overdo it, I think, in the Kickstarter side of it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, the Kickstarter cycle loops you in, because there's definitely people that I have never heard of who banked Diesel, but now I have the ability to contact them.
Yes.
You know, if I make Diesel 2, Diesel Harder, as I would obviously name it. I can email them and say, hey, if you're enjoying playing Diesel, come back and get the sequel. And then that grows with them. It has a base and it gets bigger. And then I can email those people and I do a third one and it gets bigger.
Or a Diesel quick adventure with a quick set of rules, something like that, just to get new people into it. And then
My quick play rules are available for free on DriveThruRPG right now.
Very nice, very nice. Nice plug. I like it.
Always got to be hustling, right?
That's right. So, Chad, what is something you think you'd do different next time on your next Kickstarter? Or do you plan to kickstart again?
I don't know. I mean, it's, I am, I mean, I'm a creator that has had, honestly, pretty low success in the market, so the Kickstarter was definitely like the biggest success I'd ever had. But I, thinking about going back into that, I mean, it took me a long time to write that, I mean, it took me a long time, and it's just like, man, I don't know if I want to spend, 2 or 3 months writing and then have to go through that roller coaster of, wondering if it's going to fund and then how much art can I do. I just, it was a lot of work,
Kickstarters are a lot of work. They are not push the launch button, let it go. I mean, I slept very little that first week. I don't sleep well at all anyway, but that was like the worst. And luckily I took vacation that week so that I wouldn't have to worry about my sleep habits. But yeah, you're constantly promoting, you're constantly trying to think of, what can we do to make to get the word out, just little stuff. And then you have to worry about your stretch goals. And if you hit those, then you have to try and, are we set for that? And luckily I had a lot of my stretch goals already made. And
Jeff, I didn't have a single stretch goal.
I know you didn't, and I don't think you needed them either.
Well, what was funny is, after it funded, I remember I launched it just over my lunch break at work, and it funded by the time I left work, and everybody was, hey, what's your stretch goals going to be? And I remember I was just like, man, that was a lot. I felt like I totally missed it here. I missed the boat. I should have had these ready. Why didn't I have it ready? And I started really kind of doubting myself. And then I found myself falling under temptation to like start throwing in some stretch goals that I hadn't really thought through. And I thought that was a really dangerous time. If I had to probably give advice to anybody that was new, it's like, stick to your original plan. Don't do anything that you're going to make a rash decision or an emotional decision on, and then you either don't follow through with it or you lose money.
Yeah, or have a few stretch goals, the idea of a few stretch goals ahead of time. But with yours was an adventure. I don't know how you can add a stretch goal to the adventure, other than adding art or maps.
Well, maybe virtual tabletop, I mean,
yeah,
something like that, maybe that costs a lot of money.
It does cost a lot of money.
So I mean, after you kind of look into it, you're like, no, I'm not putting that on VTT. I want to pay myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I don't think so. I think if I were to do an adventure, it would not have stretch goals unless it were more art, something like that. Because you've already got the adventure written. It's already there. Yeah. Why would I want to add anything else to it unless it was like a side quest or something like that? Because you're basing your costs and your backers print on demand cost. If you do it like I did, I think Chad did it the same way. Steve, I'm not sure how you did it, where they pay the cost of printing and shipping.
Yep.
So they pay $5 to be able to get a print code, and then after that they're paying for printing and shipping after it's done. Well, you increase those page counts and they're having to spend more money afterwards. So I think with an adventure, you just keep it simple and don't add stretch goals, which is what I'm going to do if I do an adventure.
I think it could be wasted time, because I mean, with stretch goals, if you have all that content ready to go and you're kind of expecting to hit those, like you see some of these huge $1 million ones, I mean, they already know what they're doing. Those things are probably already made. But for me, with my adventure, I didn't have anything else made, and I didn't want to be like, after it funded, now I really feel, I've got a 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job, and now I gotta write another, 20 or 30 pages.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that, so I
Yeah. No, I
just,
think you're fine. You didn't need them. Steve, did you have stretch goals in yours?
We did. We actually we planned for up to double funding because we got really excited before before the funding tapered out. But we took a very purposeful approach to it, where we took to heart all these horror stories of these huge expanded pages and bloat and all these problems, and we made sure
Yeah.
that we made realistic budgets, both in words and money, for everything that could be there.
Yeah.
So we were very cautious with it, and we ended up missing our first stretch goal by $3. So we decided to just pull that trigger because it was content that I had written early in the process that got cut
Yeah.
from the final book. So it's relatively easy to add that back in without too many extra costs. So that should work.
Yeah. Yeah. I had some stretch goals written down, and I actually had them listed there, what we would hit. But I only hit 2 of the stretch goals. But that's extra money. I made nothing basically off of the Kickstarter. It all went into production.
Mhm.
Which I guess is what Kickstarter is supposed to do. It's supposed to fund the project, but you have these other companies that are out there making their annual salary off of their Kickstarters. Kudos for them.
For me to do Diesel, I did not pay myself.
I haven't paid myself. Yeah.
I did a lot of writing in the book, plus all the project managing and all this other stuff. And my cut of that was 3% of the Kickstarter total, which came out to about $200 more, and I spent more than that on advertising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I did not pay myself. I paid all my writers, my editors, cartographers, proofreaders, layout artists. That all went into that. And if I had made a certain amount on the Kickstarter, yes, I might have made a profit, but I'm still negative right now. I don't need to sell a lot of copies, 100 copies, 200 copies, and I'm start making money. But which this is long term. I don't need to make it.
So I've got a question for you guys. Let's say if you're going to do a Kickstarter again, and I mean, we all, we enjoy creating, but it's good to get paid for the work that you do.
Mhm.
And do you include what it would cost to pay yourself in with those Kickstarter goals? Like, let's say if you wanted to pay yourself 10 cents a word, for your writing, Steve. Would you do you think that that's important, or you just want to try to get out there and just hope for future sales, like what Jeff said?
I absolutely think it's important, and I made sure everyone else was getting paid at least reasonable, but it just ballooned the cost. My writing, I wrote about 7,000 words, not counting any project management. So if I paid that at 10 cents a word, that's $700. When you factor in all the Kickstarter fees and all that sort of stuff, that's almost $1,000 that I have to add onto the amount. I made $6,997. If my goal was 7,000, I wouldn't have funded. And so I had to make the choice of, do I keep the budget low enough that I think it'll fund and not pay myself, or do I pay myself and make it harder to fund? So I chose, obviously, to try to fund it with the hope of future profits, sequels, other things in this vein. Perhaps I can build it into some kind of brand that will eventually make me a big person. But
well, I can't help it. I'm a businessman first, for sure. I run my dental office in town. And the one thing that I'm keenly aware of every single day is my overhead. What does that run? How can I decrease my overhead and still not affect the product, the service that we're doing? So I'm curious, do you feel like everybody's important in the job that they do, and I'm not saying that they aren't, but we have to also pay ourselves. So I'm just curious, if you have, we talked about this the other day, Stephen, about having an art director. You had the art director. That's something I'm very bad at. But are there things that you think that you could do without, or that you would have spent your money differently? Because I watched your Kickstarter pretty close.
Honestly, no, because I don't have the connections with artists, and I don't have the knowledge to, to contact an artist and tell them what resolution I needed to be, what color format I needed to be in, all these things. I don't know that. Right. So I needed someone to fill that role. I needed editors. I needed
layout.
The one thing I could have cut down on is the other narrative writer. I had Matt Whitby on with me, and I needed someone that wasn't my voice. Like he came in and he wrote I had never imagined any of the things that he wrote, and it like opened my mind on so many other things. I needed that other voice, so I couldn't have cut much down. But what I kept telling myself, and it is true, is that for me, doing the Kickstarter was my payment. Like my payment is that now there's a book that's going to exist. It's going to be on a shelf. Exactly. It's going to have my name on it. And then I can point to it and say, look, I am a successful project manager who made a whole new tabletop game. And I got to work with some really kick-ass people who I would love to work with all these people again. Most of them I hadn't worked with. So I've expanded a network. I've made some friends. And now I have a thing where I can hand that to someone at another company and say, look, I can do this stuff. Why don't you pay me money to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick here, I just want to give a shout out to Jenny Loveday for running this show for us, listening to me and saying, when I asked Jenny, would you host a Twitch show for me? She goes, oh, yeah, we could do that, Jeff. So you need to get down there and subscribe, like, or even tip Jenny for doing this show, because she takes her time to do this. And, just big kudos, big love to Jenny Loveday. But going back to what we're talking about, project management is a huge task with this. I mean, working with the writers and the artists and layout and cartography and editors. And I don't know about you, before I sent it off to editing, I read a lot of the adventures that were submitted to me, made adjustments on my own, just because just by reading it and being a dungeon master and a writer, I thought there were some things that were missing or could be changed a little bit. And then I sent it off to editing. So that's even more time spent. And then it's project management on its own is a huge burden, on the background.
Yeah.
But like you, I didn't pay myself anything. I didn't put anything in the budget. One, because I thought my budget was already too high to fund. I didn't want to put a $20,000 budget on it and not see it fund. I kept the budget fairly reasonable in hopes that it would fund and then make my money later. And so far that hasn't worked for me yet, but we're not dead yet. I have other Kickstarters where I can try and do add-ons. And Crit Academy said that they saw a lot of add-on sales with one of their recent Kickstarters of their other Kickstarter. So it does show that works. But you don't want to put a funding goal on that's too high, because then you don't fund, and then the money you spent is gone.
And that's what we saw happen with Ginny pointed it out in the chat. The Kickstarter that I was on before was Nazi Dracula Must Die, and that had a goal of, I think, about $25,000, which is huge in the RPG space. And it was built on, we had a fantastic team and everyone being paid what they were actually worth. It was big payments for everyone, and that's how much it cost to do that. And because that was so large, we didn't fund, and all the money that the creators had put in up front to start it and get all this going was lost, and that's hugely disheartening. That's difficult.
So I'm not sure you can count Kickstarter with an RPG product as a way to make money. If you're producing a large product like mine, I don't think so. Now I've seen some adventures that just reach maybe $1,000 in sales, which they probably paid themselves something there. Chad, I think you're very lucky with what you hit, that you have a great product. And so I don't want to say lucky. I just think
it was because I mean, just not having I might have like 400 Twitter followers. I mean, it's like,
right.
I felt like I was just shouting it out there, I honestly, I think, like you said, with Kickstarter, finding it, I think also putting the title, having the right title on there so that people know what it is when they search.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me, but otherwise I think it was really lucky.
Yeah.
And that was
Uh,
probably one of the worst things that I did is I didn't do that at first. I just had Diesel, and that tells you nothing about it. And that was something I learned like a week or two in, and I
SEO.
amended it. Yeah, to say Diesel, an action TTRPG, you know, whatever I put. But that was probably lost money for me.
So we've got another question here. Is it true that Kickstarter algorithm favors projects that fund sooner, incentivizing those without an established base to go for just covering their costs rather than making a profit for their funding goal? I don't know. I would think yes.
It does. There's the whole section right on the Kickstarter homepage of like the ones that are blowing up. You know, like when the Kickstarter algorithm, the way I understand it, one counts the money you make, but also your backers over a period of time. So if you have 1,000 people all give $1, that's still awesome because it's like, oh, holy crap, everyone's coming to this one. Let's take a look at that. Should we make that a project we love? Should we do the, you know, like they can see all these metrics.
Yeah.
So they're looking at the ones that are doing extraordinary and seeing why and boosting them up.
Yeah, just like the DMs Guild newsletter, you want to hit that projects we love, you know, you want to hit that. And so that's, I guess, you know, there's been talk about early backer rewards, you know, having a special tier for those early backers who hit that.
Yeah.
You know, they get it 300 at $10 and the rest are all $15 and $20 tiers. I guess that's going to build that, you know, your standing within that ranking.
Yep.
So I can see why you would want to do that then. So, sorry, I'm talking to myself.
reading chat. Yes.
Yeah. So Jenny says one that I've noticed that was successful RPG Kickstarters is that they often have someone with a public face to their brand throughout live streams or whatnot. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So now that I have my own Twitch show, I have my own face to put with my products. So my next Kickstarter should be that much better, right? I mean, we just
depends what you look like, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Chad. Yeah.
But that's why I made myself kind of that face. You know, I starred in the How to Play Diesel video, and I very much put my face on things so that there was that sort of something to attach to.
Yeah.
You know, I tried to make sure at every opportunity it was as clear as possible. Like, this is a book by Steve Pankotay, but actually by his team. He's just the one talking to you.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's important to have that person. You know, so you're not just, oh yeah, we're a faceless conglomerate. Please buy our things. You know, it's like, hey, it's me, Steve. Everyone loves me, right? Please give me money.
Yeah. Definitely, I've thought about doing a live video for my next one. You know, put my face out there and say, I don't know if I would wear a bow tie or something, you know, just to be different. You know, or
but you know, you can hire people for things. You know, there's plenty of influencers and talent that you can work with and bring on. You know, there's plenty of Kickstarters where, you know, you have that, like, it's a stretch goal by this larger tabletop celebrity or
yeah,
you know,
Cobalt Press is doing that now with their
Yeah.
Balta Magic, I think is that what it is? Balta Magic, where they've got celebrity writers coming on and writing for them. So
smart.
Yeah,
it's real smart. Yeah.
Well, because those famous people are going to be really interested for the project to do well if they know they can get that one, you know, adventure snippet from that person they really like, and I think it helps keep pushing it.
Yeah, if I knew more famous people, I would
Yeah,
I
right.
would hit them up.
So what is something you would not do with the next Kickstarter that you did with this one? Mine, I would like to say I would not spend as much on advertising, but then again, I can't say that because I probably still would.
I would not make advertising an afterthought.
Yeah, really, it's really hard. I did a lot of research beforehand, trying to figure out the best ways to advertise. And I did some Facebook stuff. I did some Twitter advertisements. And I reached out to, like I said, podcasters and YouTubers. And without knowing their audience, I mean, I went to a lot of D&D people, yes, but I didn't know if those audiences actually backed Kickstarters, you know? And so I think from what I want to learn next is, if I reach out to somebody, can you tell me, have you done other Kickstarter backer, or have you done other Kickstarter videos? And can you tell me what the response was from your, audience? Did you see many click-throughs to the product? I think that's a really great thing for people to be able to tell you if they're going to take your money.
Yeah. And I definitely, I think there's a deep fear in me now of doing non 5e stuff, because it's that much harder. And I might be able to push Diesel more now that it has this core base of followers, but it was definitely a lot harder than I pictured.
Yeah, and then you have to start wondering, when is 5e going to be? When are people not going to buy 5e anymore? And we've there's been podcasts. I think Teo Sabadia and Don Marmon were talking about this the other day. When is it oversaturated with just too much
bloat?
Yes. When are people going to have enough magic items? When are they going to have enough character
classes,
classes, subclasses? When is it going to be enough? So when do they stop back in Kickstarters? We've already seen so many people on the Dungeon Masters Guild creating stuff, adventures, and there's just such a huge audience of creators there. That is this going to happen now with Kickstarter too?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I think it is.
Yep. And so are we going to see? Are we going to see
an arms
more
race?
Yeah. Are we going to see more projects funding or not funding on Kickstarter, because everybody has these grand ideas of what's going to work on Kickstarter, or they're going to set their goals so low that they end up not making any money off the Kickstarter, and see the sales on Drive-Thru RPG and other places don't occur. That's one thing that I really want to emphasize there. So far with my product, I have not seen sales outside of the Kickstarter. If I have, it's maybe one every couple of days, but I'm still in the hole. So don't expect. I thought, I might be just talking out of my behind here, because I thought my project was so great. A book of 5e adventures written by some really cool RPG people with some great art and cartography. I don't know what's not resonating with the community out there. That, is it just people don't go to Drive-Thru RPG? But don't expect to make money in the aftermarket.
Well, it's really interesting. It's really easy too to get, live that. You kind of dream that Kickstarter dream. You see all these really successful Kickstarters, and then you're like, I could do that. So and so did it, and so did it, and look how much money they made. But unless you're really used to running like that team where what costs are going to be, I think you could be in for a real shock.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and there's also the thing about, where are you known? You're known in the Dungeon Masters Guild. You're not known on Drive-Thru RPG. You're not necessarily known on Kickstarter. I just think there's a lot of things that tie into sales. If you're a successful creator on the Dungeon Masters Guild, don't expect that success to go to, reflect in other places.
Yeah, and
that's all just me talking right now, because of my experience right now with my first Kickstarter. It did well. It funded. It made it. It's been produced. It's for sale now, but it's not selling.
But so I mean, if you're not going to make money like on DM's Guild or Drive-Thru RPG, and then you move to Kickstarter so that you can make money, and then you don't make money, I don't see why. You see that there's a huge logical, there's a logical dilemma here.
Well,
and so again, that's why
with Kickstarter, I think you're starting over. With the DM's Guild, I started in 2016, so I have a fan base. I have people who know my name, who know my products. On Kickstarter, I'm not known. Okay, and so now I have this one project with 600 backers behind it. I don't know if any of those followed me. I think if I were to put another one out, Kickstarter will send out an email that says, "Oh, back another project by Jeff Stevens." because I've seen some of those in my own email box,
Mhm.
which is good. So you're building a brand new audience on the Kickstarter side. And then it's relating to people with social media. I'm not active on social media. Jenny's shaking her head. No, you're not, Jeff. Um, I don't know what to say on social media. I mean, I don't just throw my random thoughts out there. I'm a very I keep a lot of things myself, and so I'm not known on the social media side either. So I'm really my consumer base, people who know me, is very small.
Mhm.
Whereas other people, people who like Matt Colville, who is a big YouTuber, has I don't know how many followers on YouTube he has. So when his Kickstarter went live, people knew him, people loved him, they backed it. He hit what, a couple $1 million, I think. The same with Critical Role. That's just one of the major success stories of 5e RPG and Kickstarter. Um, so yeah, you're in this whole. I'm just gonna start doing YouTube videos.
Well, I
That's
mean,
just me.
the chat
And TikToks. I'm gonna start doing TikToks too.
Oh, that'd be
chat's talking
awesome.
about it right now, where it's just a matter of building that audience,
Yeah.
and it is a new audience everywhere you go, where you might be able to bring little bits of it with you, but you're essentially starting over. And it's I think we do need to make sure we pay ourselves, absolutely, but it's also important, I think, to think about that I paid the team, or I will pay the team
Yeah.
as soon as the payment comes through. And I wasn't able to pay tremendous rates, but I paid at least slightly above average rates,
Yeah. Yeah.
and for them, it's more reliable, easier in a lot of ways money than the DM's Guild. Even if a writer gets $150 from me for writing a little bit in this Kickstarter, you know how long it can take to make $150 on DM's Guild?
Forever.
I can sell 4 of their products and not make $150 in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's important. That was important to me, that I got to work with a lot of these great people and they got money for it.
Now, did any of you use BackerKit? I did not. I tried to figure out BackerKit myself, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna add or what BackerKit would add for me because I don't have anything to add on to it. I didn't quite understand it. When I was trying to deal with BackerKit customer service, I kept asking questions and I wasn't getting the right answers I wanted to hear. So I just said, no, not this turn. We'll maybe try it next time. I just my questions weren't answered the way for me to understand. So
Yeah,
I decided not to.
and that's I didn't use it for the same reasons. It's when drive-through is doing most of our fulfillment.
Yeah.
I didn't see much point in using BackerKit immediately, but in some future where we're going direct to consumer and not worrying about drive-through, then
I didn't know what BackerKit was till after mine funded. I mean, seriously, I just kind of threw it in there. Now I could see if you can work yourself up to some bigger products, I think using BackerKit would be, I think, a necessity.
Yeah.
Or even hiring somebody to help, manage your starter if it was really big.
But see,
Yeah.
now Kickstarter's added add-ons now.
Yes,
So,
they did.
which is cool. Which is what BackerKit kind of did. But again, I don't understand all of BackerKit. So if we want, I need to have somebody on here to explain BackerKit to me next time.
But that's what a lot of these companies are doing. Like how cool would it be for now that we've shown that we're cool, successful Kickstarter creators? We can go to the Hit Point Press and say, hey, I've got this great new idea. Let's put your Kickstarter machine behind it. And $1 million later, we're putting out pins and posters and wall maps and all the cool stuff that Hit Point Press does. That's the dream. Have someone else do all the marketing stuff and we could just have the good ideas.
To be successful on the Guild, you really have to put out a bunch of products. You have to constantly be putting out, a good quality. Don't you think, Jeff?
That's good quality. You also have to have a number of people who are willing to buy your products every time you put something out.
Right.
Because if you're putting something out weekly, and they can't afford it, or they're not interested in it, you're just wasting your time and money.
So we were talking about, you're starting over on Kickstarter. I mean, okay, so I think the same rules are going to apply to these customers as well. Like, just because you're putting out a bunch of Kickstarters doesn't mean that the same people that have backed you before are going to do it. Because
True. No, that's
eventually
true.
they're, so I'm just
I'm not.
wondering, like, is Kickstarter going to be as successful as we think
I don't.
or feel?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm watching right now. Cameron Day's putting out Comments and Cockpits, which starts I think next week.
I saw that.
And that's I worked on Supers and Sorcery with Cam, and a bunch of the people from that are now working Comments and Cockpits, and it's something that I'm watching very carefully. I didn't come back for it because I was working on Diesel, but like they're working on settings. Like I know Cameron's already working on the next one after that too. And I'm curious how well that works. Like it's a different setting, whole different sort of stuff, but built on the same base. Like, will people buy 4 settings from the same people or something? I don't know. I'm interested to watch.
Yeah, if I don't see Kickstarter being like a monthly release. I see it be like a 2 or 3 Kickstarters a year. Probably 3 would be a big max, I think, from my side, just because of the work involved with it.
Well, and then like, hey Jeff, you had Villains and Layers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like the sales didn't go up for each one, did they? I mean, they would go down each time, right? So it's like, that's why I'm just wondering. I'm just asking. I'm just kind of playing the devil's advocate. Like, if it's really difficult to make your living on the guild, why is Kickstarter going to be any different?
We don't know yet. I don't know yet.
No, right. I mean, that's the question I have.
I only have one story to tell you so far. Once I get a couple more Kickstarters in me, I'll let you know for sure. But
I mean, there's some people that do lots of successful Kickstarters or even build their business model that way. They don't sell, board games. There's a lot of board games. They don't even sell through the friendly, local gaming store. They just Kickstarter only.
Yep.
I see tons of those.
It's kind of different audiences, and I think it's kind of doing different things. Because obviously, like on the DM's Guild, you can use the Wizards IP, and that's fantastic. I've enjoyed using it. But my dad doesn't go to the DM's Guild and buy my thing, but he backed my Kickstarter.
Right.
Like it's a little bit that more mainstream, and it's a little bit more exciting where I can like talk about it. I put something on DM's Guild and no one around me cares.
Really. Yeah, here's a funny story. So we're getting close to Chad. My parents they hate me. So here's a funny story. So we're getting close to the end. My mom comes on. My mom calls me. She goes, "Hey, you want me to put $1,000 towards your Kickstarter?" I'm like, "Oh." No. I'm like, "No." She goes, "Why not?" I said, "Because that'll move me up to the next tier on my stretch goals. And then I'll have to
you are getting old.
to get this done. So no, please don't put another $1,000 towards it, because then I would lose money because of that, because of the way my stretch goals worked out. So now she can do that the next one, when it first starts. That'd be awesome. But she was supportive. It was really fun to have her want to do that. I appreciated that. I'm like, no, just wait for the next one then.
Your parents can't help it, can they? They just want to swoop in there and help you out.
Yeah. But we're getting close. I mean, we're already over an hour, which I think we're having a great discussion here. I hope the those who are watching are getting something out of this. We're just talking about what things we've learned and haven't learned from our Kickstarters. But Steve, again, tell me about your Kickstarter. Where are people going to be able to find it, and when are they going to be able to find it, and where can we reach you? Where can we find you on social media?
Absolutely. It's called Diesel. It is an action tabletop role-playing game inspired by Mad Max and Firefly. And you can learn more on runsondiesel.com. It's going to be on DriveThruRPG in mid to late summer. It's all written and edited. We just got to get a bunch of custom art with our new shiny Kickstarter dollars. So it will be coming out, and you can always learn more at my Twitter which is right there at Steve Pankatai. It might be at Steven Pankatai. What is my Twitter? I don't know. It's one of those. So, oh, it is at Steven Pankatai. Oh no, the graphic's wrong. There's an N in there. Anyway,
It's Steven.
but yes, I'm on Twitter too much, so just follow me on there, and you'll learn about my stuff eventually.
Very cool. And by the way, I can't believe you got Runs on Diesel as a website. That's amazing.
Right? I went through a bunch of names, honestly, but yes, look for more settings in the diesel engine that run on the diesel engine.
That's pretty sweet.
Love it.
On my pitch.
That
cool.
is good stuff.
Chad, tell us about Griffin Crag Pass, when it's going to be out, when you think it's going to be out, where they're going to be able to find it, and where can we find you on social media?
Great. So Rescue at Griffin Crag Pass is the Kickstarter. It's going to be on sale at Drive Through RPG in June, maybe early July. The story is, the adventure it's a nautical theme, and I've always wanted to write an adventure about that. And it takes people from levels 1 to 5, just depending on 4 or 5, depending on how you want to level your people. You can find me on Twitter, on pretty much below at DDSDND. Jeff, I'm like you. I don't exactly connect with social media a lot. I find myself being awkward on there, but I probably use Twitter more to send direct messages to people.
Yeah.
So
don't think,
that's
because I'm not, for those of people who watch me or who are on Twitter and who follow me on Twitter, don't think I'm not on Twitter, because I scroll through things and I start typing. I start typing responses, and I delete it because it sounds stupid. So I'm active on Twitter. I'm just not actively active on Twitter. Okay,
that's the best way to use Twitter. That's the correct way.
Is that right? And I am Jeff Stevens. You can find my adventure or my book, Adventures from the Potbelly Kobold, available on Amazon and Drive Through RPG. Drive Through RPG has the print, PDF, and softcover and hardcover, so go check it out. I think my Twitter's is down there, J Corvin Stevens. There we go. My website's jeffstevensgames.com. And you have been watching and listening to Steve Pankatai and Chad Lynch and I talk about Kickstarters, our experiences with Kickstarters. And this is my show, Jeff Talks RPGs. It's been a pleasure having you here. We can't wait to have you on the next show. I don't know what it is. If anybody has any suggestions, feel free to put some comments in below. I just came up with this idea a couple weeks ago, and I reached out to Steve and Chad and said, hey, you guys want to talk about your Kickstarters? And they both luckily said yes. So I don't know what my shows are going to be, until I know. I guess that doesn't make sense, does it? Well, everybody have a good night. Thank you for being on the show. Oh, and something I do with the shows is I donate $20 to charity for each of the guests. So Steve, we donated to Child's Play for you, which is what?
That's a charity that helps provide video games mostly, but games to children stuck in hospitals.
Yep. We sent them $20. And Chad, we donated to what for you?
CCFA. It's the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. Crohn's disease is not an often understood or glamorous disease. People don't like talking about their bowel habits, with other people too much. And but it's life-changing. I've suffered with it for 35 years. We need some research into this.
Yeah, I've known several people with it, one being you. Chad and I went to college together, so I've known Chad for quite some time. But yeah, it's not a fun disease to have at all.
No, so I appreciate it, Jeffrey.
You're very welcome. So realize that if you're going to be on my show, I'm going to donate to a charity for you. So if you want to be able to guest on the show, let me know. All right. But let's have a good night, everybody. May your dice rolls be 20s or 1s or whichever we want them to be. And we are going to sign off tonight. Thanks, everyone.